Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to turn an AirTag into a credit card shaped device which is less than half the thickness. So the first part of this video is going to be for those who purchased the STL file from me in the description below. If you have a 3D printer, I recommend you go this route. It's pretty fun, honestly. So I'm going to show you how to process the printed product. This is what comes out of the 3D printer. If you don't have a 3D printer, then you could always purchase the empty DIY shell from me also, which basically has everything you need to assemble it except for an AirTag. If you don't want to go through the trouble, I also sell a pre-assembled version, which includes a modified AirTag and everything inside. It's ready to go. If you do purchase the STL, then it comes with all the instructions and all the slicer settings that I recommend and everything. So I'm using a Bambu Lab P1P, which has the ability to print in 2 different filaments at the same time. So that's what I did here. I printed my supports in PLA and my the actual shell in PETG. This is not required, but it makes taking off the supports a lot easier. So if you do print the whole thing in the same material, it's just going to be a little bit harder to remove the supports. But for me, I'm just going to show you how to do it real quick with the PLA supports. And it's super easy, just like this. So now that you have the supports taken out, this is the only part that actually needs to be supported. Everything else doesn't need any supports. So now you have the empty shell. You're gonna need 3 copper wires that are 2 inches each in length. They could be any other conductive material technically, but I recommend copper. So you're going to take your pliers or flush cutters. Make sure not to apply too much force on the actual cable itself though, and just thread it through here. Then you're going to see it come out of the other end. Just make sure it actually goes into the hole. And then bend it. And then bend it again. So you don't want to bend it exactly in the middle. You want to align it kind of with this corner right here. So you're going to draw an imaginary line here, and then an imaginary line here, and then each line is going to have a wire that's protruding out of it. So if you buy the DIY shell from me, this is going to come already done for you. So you don't need to do this, but this is just for those who bought the digital file. So do the same thing to the other side. Just mirror it basically. Make sure everything is aligned and everything is in its corresponding hole. And the middle one, do the same thing. Just thread it through like this. And then push it, make sure it actually goes in this hole. Make sure it's pushed all the way through, and then just twist, bend it 90 degrees like this. So this is what you should end up with. So we'll put this aside and we'll start working on the actual AirTag. Obviously, first step, remove the battery, and then you'll be left with this. Now get a small metal screwdriver or a pry tool, and you want to align this contact upwards, and then draw like kind of an imaginary line here, and then this is where you're going to attack the device from, kind of right above this little hole. So there's a little seam here. Just push your device through it carefully and lift up and twist, and then the cover is just going to pry away just like this. And now you're going to be left with this. So basically, now you have 2 choices. You can either remove the speaker, which some people like to do, or you could decide to keep it. If you want to keep it, I'm going to show you how to do it. It's a bit, it needs a bit more work, but basically this coil is glued onto the actual enclosure. So you want to heat up the back with like a heat gun or a hair dryer or anything like this to loosen up the glue, and then get your tool under it and then twist. Basically just pry it up gently to make sure not to cut the actual coil though. So I'm going to heat it up and I'll be right back. Okay, so now that it's nice and hot, I'm going to quickly work to remove the coil. And basically what I did here is I kind of melted the plastic in the back, which helped me get my tool under it. So now the coil is going to be nice and free. You're going to get your cutters and then cut 3 notches, 1 in each white kind of white space here. So 1 vertical notch here, 1 vertical notch here, and then another vertical notch right here. Now you're going to use this as kind of a grip, and grip the top part, the part that has the metal contacts. Only the white piece though. Only grip the white piece and then just pull outwards. And now you're gonna notice that your AirTag is falling out of the shell. So you can do this carefully, and then now you have the AirTag out of the shell. So now what you have to do, put on your safety goggles, because we're going to do some cutting. And this is the tough part. This is where most people mess up, but there's a pretty simple way to kind of get it every time almost. So I'm going to zoom in for this. And basically, you have to remove all the contacts while keeping the actual pads intact. If you do rip a pad, I'll show you what to do, but try not to rip any pads. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So with your flush cutters, again, don't cut, just kind of use it as grips. I use it because it's nice and pointy and it's easy to work with. So grip this middle contact and just twist up and then rotate. Then it's going to fall right out. This is done. This is step number 1. Done. Now these 2 other contacts. You're going to do mostly the same thing, but first you want to kind of slowly and very gently clean up the plastic, like the gray plastic around it, or just cut it up like this, like kind of just, yeah, cut it up. Until it falls out. Make sure not to apply too much pressure or else you're going to cut the actual metal. You don't want to do that. So do that for the left pad. And basically you're going to grip it. You're going to grip right here and then twist to the left. Don't pull up. Whatever you do, don't pull up. And then if you see that this pad is still nice and shiny, then you've succeeded. If it's brown, then you messed up, but there's always a solution. So I'm going to show you what to do afterwards. With this one, what you want to do with the one on the right, put your pliers here and then twist to the right and then twist one more time to the right. And sometimes it takes one more time. And that's it. Just basically be careful not to, whatever you do, never pull up. Because if you pull up, you're going to break the pads. So now all 3 pads are nice and shiny, so that's what you want. If you if you mess up the middle pad, this is your ground. This one, basically the cable or the wire that we're going to connect to this one, you want to somehow run it to any ground point. If you have a multimeter, you could check which points are ground, but I'm going to tell you now, you have this, all this is ground. All of this is ground, and then the 3rd dot at the bottom here is ground. Those 3 I know for sure are ground. So figure out a way to connect whatever cable we were going to connect to the center to any of these points. If you rip any of those 2 points, technically you should be okay, because we're gonna bridge these 2 together right here. So you don't need both of them, technically. You just need one of them to work. But it's always recommended to get both for redundancy's sake. So the wire that we connect to the one on the right, let's say you rip the one on the left. You connect the one on the right, and then the wire that was supposed to connect to the one on the left, you want to run it to one of these 2 pads somehow. So you're going to get extra cables in the DIY kit if you purchase it. So this is what that's for. But you want to somehow and put some Kapton tape or something here to prevent the wire from actually shorting with ground, but kind of run it all the way here until one of these 2 pads. And the reason why I'm saying one of these two pads is because we're going to actually bridge these two pads, so they're going to turn into one pad. So now that this is done, let me zoom out. The next step would be to shave the board to make it thinner, basically. So get a pair of flush cutters. Now this part on top, you want to grab it and rotate away. We don't need this part. This is empty, doesn't have any antennas, doesn't have anything. So the part on top is now going to be nice and rounded. Okay. Now these two have antennas, so you want to be more careful, especially with this one, with this long antenna. Whatever you do, don't get too close to this area right here, because it has a very tiny trace and you don't want to cut that. If you cut that, your AirTag's not going to work anymore. So with your flush cutters, what you want to do is you want to angle it, make sure it's completely parallel to the actual board, and place it right on top of one of the capacitors and snip. So that basically you're reducing the level from here until here to make it completely flush with the capacitors. So do this all around, making sure you're parallel the whole time, and making sure not to cut too much, so you still have like a decent amount of antenna left. Do the same thing for here. And when you approach the end, be extra careful not to cut downwards, or else you're gonna cut the trace that I talked about. So do the same thing here. It's nice and flush. So now if you look at the side profile, you're gonna see that it's pretty much all flush with the capacitors. And then you can see that this trace is still intact. So now you're gonna take your shell that you prepared. You're gonna take your speaker magnet, make sure there's nothing stuck to it underneath, and just place it right back in. Just push it right there. It's gonna sit perfectly. And then what you want to do here is open this up and slide this underneath the wires. So this is a circle, so it's going to be pretty easy to align. But you want to align it perfectly with the wires here, basically. Well, as perfect as can be. You can always adjust it later, but align it and then push down. You're going to see it's a very tight fit, and it's meant to be that way. So align it, and then once you have aligned it, you can bend down the middle wire and just push it onto the middle terminal. So this is what you're gonna connect. This is your ground, basically, and these two are your positive. So gonna do this. Cool. So you can use this tool to just kind of mess around with it until it's actually perfectly aligned. And now you can see this is perfectly aligned with each pad. And now you want to get your flush cutters and cut very carefully. Cut the wires, cut the excess wire basically. And only cut halfway through the terminal. So basically exactly how I did here. So you see the pad is still kind of showing, and there's still kind of a bit of wire on top. This is perfect because this is going to make it a lot easier to solder. If you cut too much, you can always redo it. You have extra wires. If you cut too little, just cut it a little bit more until you have a little bit of the pad exposed. So do the same thing for all three pads. You see here, I could probably cut a little bit more, so I'm just gonna go at it again, and then now it's perfect. You see, that's it. So now you want to get your soldering iron on and preheat it to at least 350 degrees Celsius. Make sure it's as hot as possible. Get your flux, and obviously if you have a fume hood or a fume extractor, use that for your safety. And then you want 3 globs of flux, one on each pad, and that's it. That's all the flux you need. Okay, so make sure you get a big glob of solder on the tip of your soldering iron. Be generous with the solder. And I'm going to use this to kind of stabilize the wire. Hopefully the camera focuses. Yep. So just get your soldering iron and kind of just tap it. Keep tapping it until you see a ball of solder formed. And now this cable is secure. Now do the same with all 3 connections. And it'll be good to go. You can always kind of test it out by just wiggling each one to make sure it's actually connected, and then you see they're all nice and solid. Now the last step, and this is a very important step, is to bridge this pad right here with this pad right here. So you're going to find a formation of 3 circular pads on the left side. The 2 top ones, you're going to want to bridge them while making sure not to bridge them with the third one at the bottom. So the way I like to do it is you get a decent amount of solder on the tip of your iron, and then first try it without flux. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, then use some flux on here and then just keep tapping around until you see they're bridged. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it takes a couple minutes. It's kind of just luck. So you can see here the top 2 are bridged and the bottom one is not. So this is exactly what you need it to be. Now you're done with the soldering. You can turn off your iron and you can turn on your hot glue gun. So now that all the connections are made, you can go ahead and test it. So again, make sure not to use a CR2032 battery, which is the one that comes with the AirTag. Instead, use a CR2025 battery because that's the only type that's supported. If you bought the DIY kit, then it comes already with a CR2025, with a couple of them actually. If you did not, then make sure to actually buy a CR2025 battery. So now you just want to kind of just push. Well, first of all, make sure these wires are perfectly parallel. And if they're not, if they're kind of bowed downwards, just adjust them a little bit up. And then take your battery and just slide it in. And then you're going to hear the pairing chime. And just kind of push it in. And then a way to test it is to short the ground with the positive. And then it's going to make the pairing chime again. So now you know the speaker works, the AirTag works, you can pair it, you can try everything. It should be exactly as normal. So now that we've tested it, made sure it actually works, we can remove the battery. And we can start hot gluing the top to make it look nicer. Okay, so now that your hot glue gun is actually hot, you want to start hot gluing the top. First of all, make sure to actually push the AirTag components down as much as possible into the casing so that nothing is protruding out. Look at the side profile, make sure nothing's protruding out. And then take your hot glue gun and just kind of go all around. And it's okay if you get excess, because everything, all the excess is going to get cut anyway. So just be generous with the hot glue. So here you can see I put quite a bit of hot glue, and that's good. So put this aside, and now get your knife and get it nice and hot. So you can either do this on a stovetop, with a blowtorch, with a heat gun, however you like. But get it nice and hot. So now that it's nice and hot, all you have to do is align it with the top of the casing and just cut the top. And it's going to cut super smooth. So you can go over it a couple times to make sure it's actually as smooth as possible. And if you look at the side profile now, it's completely flat. So that's why you need a hot knife. Now the final step is to get one of these stickers, which is included in your DIY kit, and just stick it on top to make it more aesthetically pleasing. And just, it's pretty easy to align. Just like so. And now you can try to test again with the battery and see it makes the sound. Push the battery in, and finally finish it off with the battery insert that's also included, and click it in. This is just going to make sure the battery is going to stay in place. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for buying my products and supporting me. I appreciate you very much, and have a good day.